Hello and welcome to The Comic Cave. I'm Ramsey, aka Captain Away, and today I'm looking at the 2011 to 2014 series Suicide Squad, part of DC's The New 52. This is actually a good time to be taking a look at the Suicide Squad, as they first appeared 60 years ago in a comic called The Brave and the Bold, in an issue labeled as being from September back in 1959. That title was completely different from what you might be more familiar with today. It featured regular soldiers, not supervillains, and came as a sort of Untold War Stories comic, though the stories were definitely not grounded in reality, with the group's first adventure seeing them facing off against a giant Godzilla monster in an amusement park. No, really. By 1987, the team would have their own series that would establish a number of series staples that would be carried over even into the New 52. This included being led by the tough-as-nails Amanda Waller, the real name of the group being Task Force X, the fact that their missions were not supposed to be survivable, which leads to them being called Suicide Squad, and the team being made up of all supervillains that had been captured and locked up in Belle Reve Federal Prison. It also established that these wild, untrustworthy villains were kept in place by literally explosive means. And the first series actually called Suicide Squad, that would be non-lethal armbands that would blow off their arms if they got out of line. By the New 52, this will have switched to implants in the base of their necks that would blow off their whole head. The squad would remain popular enough to continue appearing in DC Comics throughout the years, and by the time 2011 came around and DC decided to reboot their universe with 52 #1 issues, Suicide Squad would be among those 52. So let's take a look at how that went and take this away. The comic opens with the members of the current Suicide Squad being tortured. They assume, and the reader is obviously supposed to assume, that they've already been captured by the enemy and are being tortured to learn the truth about who they work for. And maybe I'm just jaded, but this just strikes me as seeming more like something Amanda Waller would do to them as some kind of test. This torture has the added bonus of introducing us to the team of misfits that make up our new Suicide Squad. It includes classic squad member Deadshot, not superhuman but supposedly the world's greatest sharpshooter, new members but pre-existing characters Harley Quinn, also no superpowers but the psychotic girlfriend of the Joker, El Diablo, with unspecific fire powers, a now Hammerhead-inspired King Shark, supposedly the half-human son of a Hawaiian shark god, and Black Spider, a Batman wannabe vigilante who kills his bad guys, as well as completely new character Voltaic, who can shoot lightning from his hands. Completely new, you say? Guess who's probably not surviving this story? This guy. After a time, they're all knocked out and taken somewhere to reveal it was just a test and Waller was behind it all along? What? I'm so surprised. They're kicked out of the back of a plane so they can begin their first real mission that involves them killing an entire stadium full of people who have become zombies. Well, not zombies. Weird techno-zombies. And a pregnant techno-zombie lady who also turns into a giant octopus monster thing. Yeah, normal stuff. Luckily, King Shark dominates in the War of the Sea Creatures, biting off her head, and Voltaic's lightning powers completely short-circuit all the techno-zombies. Deadshot removes the octopus techno-zombie monster lady's baby because he can also apparently perform a successful C-section. And here I thought he was just good at shooting things. The group then escapes the stadium, all except for Voltaic. Since his lightning powers are all over all the dead bodies, Waller knows she can frame him for what happened in the stadium, so Deadshot shoots him in the head and leaves him for dead. Shocking. They then are forced to go to ground and hide until Waller can pick them back up, a sequence that involves a shootout in a diner and Harley and Deadshot having sex. Yeah, because Harley's pretty much here to be sexy eye candy, which is why they designed her this ridiculous new outfit that they apparently loved so much that it made the focal point of the cover of the first issue, which they then reused as the cover for the first volume. And also why she gets into this even more ridiculous getup when the group tries to go incognito. Yeah, ya blend. For their next mission, the squad is joined by another old member, Captain Boomerang. Yeah, he throws boomerangs. He's aces at Zelda, I guess. Boomerang announces himself as the new leader, and they go off on a mission to free Dr. Eliza Visiak. who had been kidnapped by a crazy cult terrorist organization called Basilisk, who's basically Hydra, but DC. Dr. Visiak drinks the Kool-Aid before the squad can take her, meaning she swallows a cyanide pill in her tooth. But fortunately, El Diablo can apparently use his fire powers to burn just the cyanide out of her body. What? He can do that? This guy's awesome! Keep him around. The team is unable to get out before they're ambushed by a large contingent of Basilisk warriors, but Deadshot sells out Captain Boomerang to their leader, Grey Laura, whose sister was murdered by a boomerang through the heart. It seems this was the real plan all along. Before getting taken away by Basilisk, though, Boomerang lets slip that the Joker is dead. This confused the hell out of me because I've read pretty much every New 52 Batman title and I didn't remember this happening. Apparently, this claim of death was just due to the dollmaker having cut off Joker's face. It's enough, though, to send Harley making a break for it after her neck bomb is deactivated prematurely, staging a prison riot as cover to get back to Gotham and find Joker's face. This story is probably the highlight of the series to me, maybe just because I'm such a Harley Quinn fan, but it gives us a lot of interesting things. This includes a lot of flashbacks explaining how Dr. Harleen Quinzel went from being a notably badass young psychiatrist to falling in love with the Joker, where we see he pushed her into a vat of chemicals like he had fallen into in order to make her more like him. It also includes a ridiculous gang of Harleys, which is especially funny considering later in her own series, Harley will get an entirely different gang of Harleys. And lastly, it also features a moment where King Shark suddenly eats squad mate Yo-Yo. Also, it ends with Harley getting Deadshot tied to a chair and making him a substitute Joker using the gross cut-off face skin that she stole from the GCPD lockup. And Deadshot gets really into character with an eerily accurate prediction of the things Joker will say to Harley in the upcoming Death of the Family tie-in. Harley's day out ends with Deadshot gut-shotting her, but she recovers thanks to something called Lazarus 17 that they pump into her veins. I'm sure that's not going to be significant in any way. The Lazarus theme is continued with a story that sees the squad hunting down the Resurrection Man, an old DC character that comes back to life with a new superpower every time he dies. After several attempts to kill him that all end poorly, the team settle for keeping his hand in a jar Doctor Who style for further study. They then get back to investigating Basilisk, taking down one of their men who manages to swallow some cyanide before they can question him. That's okay though, El Diablo's there. He can just burn it out of his system like he did for Dr. Visiak. No? Not gonna do that? Just gonna leave him dead? Okay then. Luckily they get some intel anyway, so despite it now being clear that there's a traitor in their midst, they get on a plane to Basilisk's base. On the plane with them, though, is another traitor who uses her creepy Lady Deathstrike fingernails to poke her neck bomb implant, setting it off. Despite blowing a giant hole in the plane, the explosion doesn't seem to kill anyone, and they all end up on the shore of Yucatan where they run across some serious racism. I mean, seriously. A tribe of Mayans that still practice ritualistic human sacrifice? This is straight out of comics from the 50s, the ones that most comic companies try to hide away and pretend never happened. But this is 2012, and a major title from one of the two biggest comic companies in the world. How is this even happening? They end up being saved by their enemies, Basilisk, led by Captain Boomerang. It seems Grey Laura's revenge involved conversion instead of killing. Boomerang brings the squad to Basilisk's leader, Regulus, who doesn't want them dead, but instead wants them to join his new world order. Basilisk believes that the growing number of super people in the world will eventually lead to superhumans controlling everything, and they want to be among the ones in control when that happens. Regulus sends them off to their cells, but there's a twist in the shape of a boomerang. It seems the captain was a plant all along, and trading him to Basilisk earlier was just Waller's method of getting a guy on the inside. He stages a fight with Deadshot so they can get the drop on their guards, but before they get away, the Judas in their own ranks reveals himself, which turns out to be Black Spider. Spider manages to delay the squad long enough for Regulus to show back up, and the plot comes to a very sudden end when Regulus grabs Deadshot and demands a hypnotized Harley kill him and herself, but Deadshot instead shoots himself through the heart, also shooting Regulus through the heart. Well, that seemed like a lot of build-up for a story that's already done. Except it's not done. This abrupt end was brought on to rush the squad back so they could have a tie-in in the Death of the Family story that I have a separate video on. Aside from what I talk about in that video, we also see what seems like a very close relationship growing between Waller and Dr. Visiak. Is it just me? They seem unusually close. Am I just misreading the room? Also, we learn that the squad all have contacts installed in their eyes that are miniature video cameras, so Waller sees everything Joker does to torture Harley, but Waller still does nothing to help her. With the tie-in out of the way, the comic immediately jumps back to the story it was running to explain how the squad got away from Basilisk, before they go back into the field to find some more racism in the form of some blatant Kill Bill references and Yo-Yo's sister. Oh right, because it turned out Yo-Yo didn't die, but since he can yo-yo his body between giant and small, he just survived as his thin person self inside King Shark's intestines for months. Pretty gross. But he dies now when he sacrifices himself by wrapping his neck around his sister so Deadshot can ignite the explosive, killing both brother and sister. Oh, right, because it turned out Deadshot didn't die either. I'm sure you're shocked. Looks like all that Lazarus and Resurrection Man stuff did come back. They were in this mission in the first place to rescue a man named Kurt Lance, who was taken by a still apparently alive Regulus. The man holds some personal importance to Waller, enough to get her out in the field and have her turn off everybody's bombs, asking them for their help of their own free will. Before this plot goes anywhere though, a man named the Unknown Soldier shows up to kill Deadshot and declare himself the new leader of the Suicide Squad. He's been dead once already. This volume. This entire story arc is then completely abandoned, and Yo-Yo's sacrifice and Amanda's search for Kurt Lance are completely forgotten as we move into the 4th volume. Here, main series writer Alex Glass leaves to be replaced by brand new writer Alice Cote, and a couple quick stories that see Batgirl's psycho killer brother James Gordon Jr. be hired on by Waller as an analyst to help improve the Suicide Squad, as they, along with new member Cheetah, take on a giant walking corpse thing made up of hundreds of regular-sized corpses and some kind of third-world dictator who hired his own super team as protection. The only tie-in this part of the story has with the earlier stories is a confirmation that Waller has the ability to resurrect the members of the squad as many times as she wants. I guess even death is not an escape. The final volume again switches writers to Matt Kindt, who might be the most capable writer of the three. However, his run is entirely one single story that basically feels like it's just killing time. This especially comes out in the amount of backstory we get on random characters, including ones we've already seen backstory for, like Deadshot. This volume takes place entirely during the Forever Evil Justice League arc, where all the Justice League members were thought killed by evil alternate universe versions of themselves. Yeah, still with me? Okay. The story sees a prisoner in Belle Reve called the Thinker set all the prisoners free to gain control of the prison. He then sends 2 squads out to retrieve the body of an old DC character called OMAC, recreated for the New 52 as the cyborg body of a young man named Kevin Coe. Thinker manages to place his brain in Kevin's OMAC body and proceeds to rampage through Belle Reve, managing to fight off both assembled teams that include all the various Suicide Squad members, as well as Steel and Power Girl, and even King Shark's Shark Godfather, who was apparently locked away deep in the bowels of Belle Reve. Kevin Coe manages to wrestle control of OMAC back from the Thinker, but just as he does, Captain Boomerang blunders in to knock him into what had been Waller's backup plan, a portal to an empty universe. That's pretty messed up. The series ends with hints at a new team being formed in the wake of the Forever Evil event, but the only one of relevance is Black Manta, who helped Lex Luthor and Batman stop the evil Justice League, and thus is pardoned for all his crimes by the US government. He has no use for his freedom though, so he gets himself arrested so he can request to be placed in the Suicide Squad. Not sure how he even knows the Suicide Squad exists though, since the first 3 volumes made a huge deal about keeping Task Force X an absolute secret, even blowing up one girl's head when she started to talk about it. The series will then get a sort of soft reboot as the new Suicide Squad, but we'll take a look at that series next week, so for now, let's get to the breakdown. Much like the movie that is clearly based on this series, the story ends up being a mess of different ideas and lacking focus. Also, like the movie, Harley Quinn is pretty much the highlight of the story, especially under Adam Glass, who gave her backstory an enjoyable update and gave her some honestly funny moments in general. He probably did the best job with the story overall, giving most of the characters their own motivations and personalities, even if they're mostly very simple or basic. On the other hand, his attempt at witty banter between the characters was often pretty cringeworthy, and it's hard to ignore the blatantly racist moments and the weird push towards sexualizing the female characters during his run. I mean, who in the hell at DC okayed making a young, sexier version of Amanda Waller? Who thought that would be a good idea? The other two writers didn't stick around enough to do much with the characters, and the way they both completely abandoned whatever was happening during the previous writer's run, and the character development already done, made it hard to appreciate their efforts. So I'm giving this series a recommendation level of medium. I feel like there were elements of a good comic in here, but nothing really got to come together in an interesting enough way to make it worth it. Thanks everybody for watching! I decided to split my discussion of the Suicide Squad into two videos, so I could give a fair discussion of both New 52 Suicide Squad titles, especially since reading one isn't at all necessary for reading the other. So I'll be taking a look at New Suicide Squad next week. Hope to see you then, right here in the Comic Cave.